The massive space station New Geneva floated silently in the void between star systems. Its gleaming metal corridors stretched for miles in every direction, housing the most important meeting in galactic history. Representatives from 12 different worlds had gathered in the Grand Council chamber, a circular room with walls made of clear crystal that showed the stars beyond. Captain Maya Rodriguez sat quietly in the section marked for Earth's delegation. She wore the standard blue uniform of the Earth Space Command, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Her brown eyes watched the other delegates with calm interest as they spoke about their home worlds. The chamber buzzed with conversation, in dozens of different languages. Universal translators built into each seat made sure everyone could understand each other. Maya listened as the alien representatives shared stories about their planets and their people. The Krathari delegate stood first. He was tall and covered in gray scales that caught the light when he moved. His yellow eyes glowed as he spoke about his world. "On Krathos, we have the Shadow Stalkers," he said with pride. "They are hunters that can become invisible and have claws longer than your arm. They can cut through solid metal and hunt in packs of 50. The other delegates made impressed sounds. The Krathari had always been known as fierce warriors, and their planet was one of the most dangerous in the galaxy. Next came the Vellani representative. She looked like a large snake with arms and had skin that shifted colors as she talked. "The acid serpents of Velen Prime are the true masters of death," she hissed softly. "They can spit poison that melts rock from over 100 meters away. Nothing on our world dares to challenge them." A delegate from the crystalline Zephyrians spoke next. His body looked like living glass that sparkled with inner light. "Our energy hunters do not even have physical form," he said in a voice like wind chimes. "They are pure energy that can pass through any material and drain the life force from their prey instantly." More stories followed. The Thurvak spoke of their massive ground shakers, creatures the size of buildings that could cause earthquakes, with their steps. The aquatic Melon described their deep trench lurkers, monsters that lived in the darkest parts of their ocean and could swallow whole ships. Each species seemed to try to top the others with tales of more dangerous and deadly creatures. The room filled with descriptions of claws, fangs, venom, and supernatural abilities. Maya noticed that many of the delegates kept glancing her way, waiting for Earth's turn to speak. Commander Zara Blackwood sat to Maya's left. She was a tall woman with short blonde hair and sharp green eyes. Zara had been Maya's second-in-command for 5 years, and they worked together like a well-oiled machine. Dr. Sam Parker sat on Maya's right, a thin man with curly red hair who studied alien life forms. He looked nervous as the stories of deadly predators continued. Lieutenant Jake Morrison and Communications Officer Lisa Chang completed the Earth delegation. Jake was a young man with dark skin and bright eyes who served as their military advisor. Lisa was a small woman with black hair who could speak 7 alien languages without using the translators. Ambassador Keth of the Krathari finished telling another story about shadow stalkers hunting down a group of space pirates. He turned his yellow gaze toward the Earth section and smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "We have heard many fine tales today," Keth said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "But we have not yet heard from our newest friends from Earth. Captain Rodriguez, perhaps you would share with us the story of your world's apex predator." The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to Maya as she remained seated, her hands folded calmly in her lap. She could feel the weight of their attention, but showed no sign of nervousness. Keth continued, clearly enjoying the spotlight. "We have heard of your lions and tigers, your sharks and bears. Surely Earth must have some magnificent beast that rules over all others. What creature makes even your bravest warriors tremble with fear?" The other delegates leaned forward in their seats, eager to hear about Earth's monsters. They expected tales of giant creatures with massive claws or deadly venom. Maya could see the anticipation in their alien faces. Dr. Parker shifted uncomfortably beside her. He knew exactly what Maya was thinking, and it made him nervous. The other delegates had no idea what they were asking about. Maya stood slowly, her movements calm and controlled. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each delegate in turn. The silence stretched for several seconds as she appeared to consider the question. "You want to know about Earth's apex predator?" she said finally, her voice clear and steady. The translators carried her words to every corner of the chamber. The delegates nodded eagerly. Some of them already looked disappointed, expecting Earth's contribution to be far less impressive than their own world's monsters. Maya smiled then, just a small curve of her lips that somehow made several delegates shift uneasily in their seats. There was something in that smile that suggested they might not like the answer. Earth's apex predator, Maya repeated, letting the words hang in the air for a moment. Then, without any drama or flourish, she simply raised her right hand. The gesture was so simple and unexpected that it took several seconds for the delegates to process what had happened. Maya stood there with her hand raised, still wearing that small, knowing smile. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Some delegates looked around as if they had missed something. Others stared at Maya's raised hand as if waiting for her to produce some hidden weapon or device. Ambassador Keth's scaled brow furrowed in confusion. "I do not understand, Captain Rodriguez. Are you indicating that we should wait for someone else to speak?" Maya lowered her hand but kept smiling. "No, Ambassador Keth. I answered your question completely." The confusion in the chamber grew. The Villani delegate's skin shifted to colors that indicated bewilderment. The crystalline Zephyrian's light flickered in patterns that suggested he was trying to process unexpected information. "You raised your hand," said the Thurvak delegate, his voice deep and rumbling. "This means nothing to us." "It means everything," Maya replied calmly. "You asked about Earth's apex predator. I showed. You won." The silence that followed was different from before. It was not the eager anticipation of a good story, but the uncertain quiet of beings who suddenly realized they might be missing something important. Commander Blackwood watched Maya with approval. She had seen her captain in action before and knew that this was just the beginning. Dr. Parker still looked nervous, but there was also a hint of excitement in his eyes. He understood the implications of what Maya had just done. Ambassador Keth's yellow eyes narrowed as he studied Maya's face. "You are saying that humans are your world's apex predator." "I am saying that I am Earth's apex predator," Maya corrected gently. "Along with every other human in this room and every other human who has ever lived." The chamber fell completely silent as the delegates tried to process this claim. They looked at Maya's small frame, her lack of visible claws or fangs, her seemingly fragile appearance compared to their own world's monsters. Finally, one of the delegates began to laugh. Then another joined in. Soon, most of the chamber was filled with the sound of alien laughter in a dozen different forms. Maya stood quietly through it all, her expression never changing. She waited for the laughter to die down, her patience as calm and steady as everything else about her. When the chamber finally quieted, Ambassador Keth wiped moisture from his yellow eyes. "Forgive us, Captain Rodriguez. We mean no disrespect to your species. But surely you cannot be serious. Humans are small and soft, with no natural weapons. How could you possibly be apex predators?" Maya's smile grew slightly wider. "Would you like me to show you?" The laughter in the chamber slowly died down as the delegates realized Maya was not joking. Her calm expression and steady voice made it clear she was completely serious about her claim. The alien representatives looked at each other with confusion and amusement. Ambassador Keth leaned back in his chair, his scaled face showing what might have been a grin. Captain Rodriguez, you cannot truly believe that your species could compete with the predators we have described. Your people have no claws, no venom, no natural armor. You are not even particularly large or strong. Maya remained standing, her hands clasped behind her back in a relaxed military posture. Size and strength are not the only measures of a predator, Ambassador. But I understand your doubt. Words alone will not convince you. Commander Blackwood exchanged a quick glance with Dr. Parker. Both of them knew Maya well enough to recognize the tone in her voice. She was moving into what they privately called her teaching mode. It usually meant someone was about to learn, something they did not expect. The Villani delegate's skin shifted to bright orange patterns that indicated curiosity mixed with skepticism. Are you suggesting some kind of demonstration, human? Because if so, we should warn you that many of us possess natural defenses that could be quite dangerous. I would not dream of putting any of you at risk, Maya replied smoothly. However, the Galactic Council does have certain traditions for situations like this, does it not? A murmur ran through the chamber as the delegates realized what she was suggesting. The Thurvac representative, whose voice sounded like grinding stone, spoke up first. You speak of the proving, Maya nodded. I do indeed. The ancient tradition where species demonstrate their natural capabilities in controlled environments. It has not been used in over 200 years, but the protocols still exist. Dr. Parker shifted nervously in his seat. The proving was more than just a demonstration. It was a formal challenge that could have serious diplomatic consequences. If Maya failed, it would not just embarrass her personally, it could affect Earth's standing with the entire Galactic Council. Ambassador Keth's yellow eyes gleamed with interest. The proving requires unanimous consent from all council members present. It also requires the challenging species to accept full responsibility for the outcomes. I understand the requirements, Maya said calmly. I also understand that Earth is the newest member of this council. Some of you still question whether humans deserve a place among the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. Perhaps this would be an opportunity to settle that question once and for all. The chamber erupted in excited conversation as delegates spoke rapidly among themselves in their native languages. The universal translators could not keep up with the overlapping voices, creating a buzz of incomprehensible sound. Lisa Chang leaned over to whisper to Jake Morrison. Is she really going to do this? The proving is not just a simple test. It is designed to push species to their absolute limits. Jake watched Maya's confident posture and shook his head slowly. She knows exactly what she is doing. The question is whether the rest of us are ready for what comes next. The crystalline Zephyrian delegate stood, his form sparkling as internal. Lights pulsed in complex patterns. The proving has not been invoked since the Corvani disaster. Are you certain you wish to proceed down this path, Captain Rodriguez? Maya turned to face him directly. What happened to the Corvani was tragic, but it was also the result of their own overconfidence. They challenged the Council to prove their superiority and were not prepared for what they faced. I am not here to prove human superiority. I am here to demonstrate human capability. Dr. Parker finally stood up, his face pale but determined. Maya, I need to speak with you privately before you commit to this course of action. The proving involves risks that go far beyond personal safety. Maya looked at her team members, seeing the concern in their faces. These people had followed her across the galaxy and trusted her judgment in countless dangerous situations. She owed them an explanation. 5 minutes, she said to the assembled delegates. I request a brief recess to consult with my team. Ambassador Keth nodded graciously. Of course. We will suspend the session while you consider your decision. The Earth delegation moved to a small conference room adjacent to the main chamber. As soon as the door sealed behind them, Dr. Parker turned to face Maya with obvious worry written across his features. Maya, The proving is not just a test of individual ability. It is designed to examine every aspect of a species' evolutionary development, physical capability, mental adaptability, social cooperation, technological integration. The scenarios are generated by the most advanced AI systems in the galaxy, and they are specifically designed to find weaknesses. Commander Blackwood crossed her arms and leaned against the wall. Sam is right to be concerned. But I know that look in your eyes, Captain. You have already made up your mind about this. Maya nodded slowly. I have. But I want all of you to understand what we are facing. The other council members see us as newcomers who stumbled into space travel through luck rather than evolution. They think we are soft and weak because we do not have natural weapons or armor. Well, we do not have those things, Jake pointed out reasonably. Compared to most of the species here, humans are pretty fragile. That is exactly what they expect us to think, Maya replied. And that is exactly why we are going to surprise them. Sam, you have studied the evolutionary history of every species in this council. Tell me, what do they all have in common? Doctor. Parker thought for a moment, his scientific mind working through the question. They all developed as apex predators on their home worlds through specialized physical adaptations. Enhanced strength, natural weapons, toxic capabilities, energy manipulation. Exactly. They all followed the same basic pattern. They became dominant through biological advantages that made them superior to other species on their planets. But humans took a completely different path. Lisa Chang began to understand where Maya was going with this explanation. We became apex predators through intelligence and adaptability rather than physical specialization. More than that, Maya continued, we became the ultimate generalists. Every other species here is perfectly adapted to their specific environment and hunting style. But humans can adapt to any environment and any challenge. We do not have claws, so we make tools. We do not have armor, so we create shelter. We do not have venom, so we use strategy. Commander Blackwood smiled grimly. And the proving is designed to test exactly those kinds of adaptive capabilities. The question is whether you are all willing to go through this with me, because the proving is not just about individual performance. It will test all of us as a team and as representatives of our entire species. The 4 team members looked at each other, considering the magnitude of what Maya was proposing. They would be facing challenges designed by alien intelligences, specifically to exploit human weaknesses. Failure would not just mean personal embarrassment. It could affect Earth's relationship with every other civilization in the galaxy. Dr. Parker was the first to speak. I have spent my entire career studying alien life forms and evolutionary biology. If there is anyone who can help you navigate the challenges ahead, it is me. I am in. Jake Morrison nodded firmly. I signed up to represent Earth among the stars. That means standing behind our captain when she makes the hard choices. Count me in. Lisa Chang smiled. My job is to make sure we can communicate with anyone we meet out here. That includes making sure they understand exactly what humans are capable of. I am with you. Commander Blackwood pushed herself away from the wall and stood at attention. I have followed you into situations that seemed impossible before. This is just one more mission. Let us go show them what Earth's apex predators can really do. Maya looked at her team with pride and gratitude. Then let us return to the chamber and accept their challenge. The Earth delegation returned to the council chamber with determined expressions. Maya walked with the same calm confidence she had shown throughout the meeting, but now her team stood behind her with obvious resolve. The alien delegates watched, their entrance with curiosity and anticipation. Ambassador Keth rose from his seat as Maya approached the center of the chamber. Have you reached a decision, Captain Rodriguez? We have, Maya replied clearly. Earth's delegation formally requests to invoke the proving. We accept all conditions and responsibilities as outlined in the Galactic Council protocols. A wave of excited murmurs swept through the chamber. Several delegates leaned forward in their seats, while others exchanged glances that seemed to mix anticipation with concern. The proving had not been attempted in over 2 centuries, and most of the current council members had only heard stories about previous challenges. The crystalline Zephyrian delegates' internal lights pulsed in rapid patterns. Very well. As the senior member of this council, I will oversee the proceedings. The proving consists of multiple trials designed to test different aspects of predatory capability. Captain Rodriguez, do you wish to face these challenges alone, or will your entire delegation participate? Maya looked back at her team. Each of them nodded slightly, confirming their commitment. My team will participate as needed. However, I will take the primary role in each trial. Ambassador Keth's scaled features showed what might have been approval. A wise choice. The first trial is always conducted individually to establish baseline capabilities. Are you prepared to begin immediately? I am ready, Maya said without hesitation. The chamber began to transform around them. Panels in the walls slid open to reveal advanced holographic projectors and environmental control systems. Within minutes, the formal meeting space had become a sophisticated testing facility capable of creating any imaginable scenario. Dr. Parker watched the transformation with professional interest. The technology involved was far beyond anything currently available on Earth, but the principles were familiar. The Council could literally create entire worlds within this chamber, complete with weather patterns, terrain, and living creatures. That would feel completely real to anyone inside the simulation. A Thurvac technician, whose rocky skin made him look like a walking boulder, operated the control systems with surprising delicacy. The first trial will be conducted in Environment Designation 7 Alpha. This is a jungle world simulation that combines the most challenging elements from 12 different planets. The terrain includes dense vegetation, multiple climate zones, and varied elevation changes. Maya nodded as she listened to the explanation. The trial sounded complex, but she had trained in similar environments on Earth. Jungle warfare and survival had been part of her military education long before she joined the space program. Your objective, continued the Thurvac technician, is to track and capture 3 different prey animals within a 6-hour time limit. Each animal possesses the combined characteristics of apex predators from various council member worlds. They will not be simple targets. Lisa Chang raised her hand politely. Will Captain Rodriguez have access to equipment, or is this trial meant to test natural capabilities only? The technician consulted his display screens before answering. Standard survival gear is permitted. 1 knife, 1 length of rope, basic clothing suitable for the environment, and a water container. No advanced technology or weapons are allowed. Commander. Blackwood frowned slightly. The limitations seemed designed to favor species with natural hunting advantages. A human with just basic gear would be at a significant disadvantage compared to aliens with built-in claws, venom, or other biological weapons. Maya began removing her formal uniform jacket and rolling up her sleeves. That sounds reasonable. What are the characteristics of the prey animals I will be tracking? The chamber around them shimmered and transformed into a dense jungle environment. Massive trees stretched upward into a canopy so thick that only scattered patches of sunlight reached the ground. The air became warm and humid, filled with the sounds of alien insects and distant animal calls. The smell of rich earth and growing plants filled Maya's nostrils. The first prey animal is called a phase cat, the technician explained as Maya stepped into the simulation. It has the ability to become temporarily invisible and can move through solid objects for short periods. It is approximately the size of your Earth leopards, but much faster and more intelligent. Maya nodded, already scanning the environment around her. The jungle was incredibly realistic, from the feel of damp earth under her boots to the way moisture condensed on the broad leaves hanging overhead. She could see no obvious signs of artificial construction. The second prey animal is a sonic screamer. It can produce sound waves powerful enough to disorient or even damage hearing. It uses this ability both for hunting and defense. The creature is roughly human-sized, but can climb vertical surfaces and has excellent camouflage capabilities. The description made Jake Morrison wince. Humans relied heavily on their hearing for situational awareness. An animal that could attack through sound would be particularly dangerous for someone trying to track it through dense jungle. The third prey animal is called a mirror serpent. It can perfectly mimic the appearance of other creatures, including the hunter tracking it. It also possesses a paralytic venom delivered through retractable fangs. This creature is highly intelligent and has been known to set traps for its pursuers. Maya received a basic survival kit from the technician and checked its contents quickly. A sharp knife with a 6-inch blade, 30 feet of strong rope, lightweight clothing designed for tropical conditions, and a water container that held about 2 liters. Not much equipment for hunting 3 supernatural predators, but she had worked with less before. The alien delegates settled into observation seats that had risen from the chamber floor. Multiple screens displayed different views of the jungle environment, allowing them to follow Maya's progress from various angles. Dr. Parker noticed that several delegates were already making what looked like wagers about the outcome. Maya stood at the edge of a small clearing studying the jungle around her. She made no immediate moves toward any particular direction, instead spending several minutes just watching and listening. The alien observers began to murmur among themselves, wondering why she was not taking action. "Why does she wait?" asked the Villani delegate, her skin showing colors of confusion. "The time limit has already begun. Should she not be searching for tracks or signs of the prey animals?" Dr. Parker smiled slightly but said nothing. He recognized Maya's behavior from previous missions. She was not wasting time. She was gathering information and forming a strategy based on the environment and the challenges she faced. After 5 minutes of apparent inactivity, Maya finally moved. She walked to a nearby tree and cut several long strips of bark using her knife. The delegates watched with puzzlement as she began weaving the bark strips together into what looked like a simple basket. "What is she doing?" Ambassador Keith asked. "This appears to be craft work rather than hunting." Commander Blackwood leaned forward to get a better view of the screens. "She is preparing. Maya never goes into a situation without understanding what tools she needs and what resources are available." Maya finished her bark basket and began collecting various items from the jungle floor. Certain types of leaves, small stones, pieces of fallen wood, and what appeared to be some kind of sticky tree sap. To the alien observers, it looked like random gathering, but each item was carefully selected for specific properties. The phase cat appeared on one of the monitoring screens, moving silently through the underbrush about 200 meters from Maya's position. Its sleek form flickered in and out of visibility as it used its supernatural abilities. The creature was clearly aware of Maya's presence and was already beginning to stalk her. Maya seemed oblivious to the approaching predator as she continued, collecting materials. She knelt beside a small stream and began mixing the tree sap with mud and crushed leaves, creating what looked like a thick paste. The alien delegates exchanged glances of concern. The human appeared to be completely unprepared for what was coming. The phase cat crept closer, now only 50 meters away. It moved with perfect silence, its paws making no sound on the jungle floor. When it was just 20 meters from Maya's position, it began to phase out of normal reality, preparing to attack through its supernatural abilities. That was when Maya looked up and smiled directly at the creature that thought it was invisible. The phase cat froze in shock as Maya looked directly at its invisible form. The creature had been certain that its supernatural camouflage made it undetectable, yet the human was staring right at it with calm, knowing eyes. For several seconds, predator and prey regarded each other across the jungle clearing. Maya slowly reached into her improvised bark basket and pulled out a handful of the sticky paste she had been mixing. The alien delegates watched in confusion as she began spreading the substance on nearby leaves and tree branches. To them, it looked like meaningless activity that would only alert her stalker to her exact location. "She knows the creature is there," Dr. Parker said quietly to the other Earth team members. "But how? The phase cat should be completely invisible." Commander Blackwood studied the monitoring screens carefully. "Look at the way she positioned herself by that stream. She has been tracking water displacement and ground vibrations. Maya does not need to see something to know where it is." The phase cat decided that its camouflage had been compromised and shimmered back into full visibility. It was a beautiful creature, with silver-gray fur marked by darker stripes and bright, yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the filtered jungle light, its muscles bunched as it prepared to spring forward in a direct attack. Maya calmly continued her work, spreading the sticky paste on more surfaces around her position. She moved with deliberate slowness, never taking her eyes off the phase cat, but showing no signs of fear or urgency. The creature crept closer, confused by the human's lack of panic. "Why does she not run?" asked the Villani delegate, her skin shifting to colors that indicated bewilderment. "The phase cat is one of the most dangerous predators in our database. It can kill prey much larger than itself." Ambassador Keth leaned forward in his observation seat. "Perhaps she has some hidden weapon we cannot detect, but the scanning systems show only the permitted equipment." The phase cat lunged forward with incredible speed, covering the 20 meters between itself and Maya in less than 2 seconds. Its claws extended as it leaped through the air, aiming for Maya's back. The alien delegates expected to see the human torn apart by the supernatural predator. Instead, Maya stepped sideways at exactly the right moment. The phase cat sailed through the space where she had been standing and crashed directly into one of the trees she had covered with sticky paste. The creature stuck fast to the bark, its fur matted with the improvised adhesive she had created. The phase cat struggled frantically, trying to use its abilities to escape. It attempted to phase through the tree, but the paste somehow interfered with its supernatural powers. The more it fought, the more tangled it became in the sticky substance Maya had prepared. Maya approached the trapped creature calmly and used her rope to secure it more thoroughly. Within minutes, the first prey animal was completely immobilized and ready for transport. The alien delegate stared in stunned silence as Maya fashioned a simple harness and began dragging the phase cat toward a secure location. How did she know it would attack in exactly that manner? The crystalline Zephyrian delegate asked, his internal lights flickering with confusion. The phase cat's behavior should have been unpredictable. Jake Morrison smiled as he watched Maya work. She studied the creature's capabilities and environment, then created a situation where its natural instincts would work against it. Maya did not need to predict its exact movements. She just needed to make sure that any attack would result in capture. The sonic screamer chose that moment to announce its presence with a piercing shriek that echoed through the jungle. The sound was so intense that it caused the monitoring equipment to fluctuate and made several alien delegates cover their hearing organs in discomfort. Maya dropped to the ground immediately, covering her ears with her hands. The alien observers expected her to be disoriented or damaged by the sonic attack, but she recovered quickly and began moving toward the source of the sound. "She is going toward the creature that just attacked her," the Thurvak delegate rumbled in amazement. "This makes no tactical sense. The sonic screamer will simply attack again when she gets closer." Maya moved through the jungle with a different style now. Instead of the careful, methodical approach she had used with the phase cat, she moved quickly and unpredictably. She would dash forward for several meters, then suddenly change direction or dive behind cover. Her movements seemed random and chaotic. The sonic screamer attacked again, sending another devastating sound wave through the trees. This time, Maya was ready for it. She had positioned herself behind a large boulder that blocked most of the sonic energy. More importantly, she used the attack to pinpoint the creature's exact location. "There," Maya said quietly to herself, pointing toward a section of the canopy about 40 meters away. The sonic screamer was perched high in the trees, using its elevated position to maximize the effect of its sound-based attacks. Maya began climbing. She did not head directly toward the creature's position, but instead chose a route that would bring her up through the trees at an angle the sonic screamer could not easily target. The alien delegates watched with growing amazement as the human moved through the canopy with surprising skill. "Humans are not natural climbers," observed the Valani delegate. "Their physiology is not designed for arboreal movement. How does she manage such agility?" Lisa Chang answered proudly. "Humans are the ultimate adapters. We learn to move efficiently in any environment we encounter. Maya has trained in jungle, mountain, desert, and urban environments. She knows how to use her body as a tool for any situation." The sonic screamer detected Maya's approach and prepared another attack. But Maya had anticipated this, as the creature drew breath for its devastating shriek. She threw one of the rocks she had collected earlier. The stone struck the sonic screamer in the throat just as it began to vocalize. The interrupted attack caused the creature to make a strangled, painful sound instead of its usual devastating shriek. Worse for the sonic screamer, the disrupted vocalization seemed to cause it significant pain. It clutched at its throat and lost its grip on the tree branch. Maya was already in motion. She swung through the canopy on a vine she had tested moments before, reaching the falling creature just as it crashed through the lower branches. Her rope was ready, and she managed to loop it around the sonic screamer before it could recover from its fall. The second prey animal was captured within an hour of the first. Maya secured it alongside the phase cat and took a moment to rest and plan her approach to the final challenge. The mirror serpent would be the most dangerous of the three creatures because of its intelligence and ability to mimic her appearance. The alien delegates were no longer making jokes about human weakness. They watched Maya with growing respect and concern as she prepared to face a creature that could look exactly like her and had venom capable of paralyzing much larger prey. "She has succeeded twice through preparation and tactical thinking," Ambassador Keth admitted grudgingly. "But the mirror serpent is different. It will study her methods and adapt its own strategy accordingly. Intelligence versus intelligence." Dr. Parker nodded grimly. "That is exactly the kind of challenge Maya lives for. She has never met a problem she could not solve through careful analysis and creative thinking." Maya stood in the jungle clearing, studying the environment around her with fresh eyes. The mirror serpent was somewhere nearby, watching her every move and learning how she operated. It would try to use her own methods against her. She smiled as she began her final preparations. Let it watch and learn. She was about to teach it something about human adaptability that no amount of observation could prepare it for. Maya stood motionless in the jungle clearing, her eyes scanning the dense vegetation around her. The mirror serpent was out there somewhere, watching and learning from her previous captures. Unlike the other two creatures, this one would not rely on raw power or special abilities alone. It would use intelligence and deception to turn her own methods against her. The alien delegates observed in tense silence as Maya began what appeared to be the same preparation routine she had used before. She collected materials from the jungle floor, tested the strength of various vines, and examined the terrain for tactical advantages. To the watching aliens, it looked like she was following the exact same pattern that had worked with the previous prey animals. "She is repeating her earlier behavior," the Valani delegate noted, her skin showing patterns of confusion. "But the mirror serpent will have observed those techniques. It will be prepared for her traps and strategies." Dr. Parker watched Maya's movements carefully on the monitoring screens. Something was different about her actions this time, though he could not immediately identify what had changed. She moved with the same calm efficiency, but there was a subtle alteration in her body language that suggested she was playing a deeper game. Maya finished gathering her materials and began constructing what looked like another trap. She wove branches together to create a snare, mixed more of the sticky paste from tree sap and mud, and set up what appeared to be a simple ambush point near a natural water source. The whole setup took her about 20 minutes to complete. When she finished, Maya stepped back to examine her work with apparent satisfaction. Then she did something unexpected. She began talking to herself in a voice just loud enough to carry through the jungle air. "That should work," she said aloud, looking at her trap. "The mirror serpent will probably approach from the east side where the cover is thickest. When it gets close to the water, the snare will trigger, and the sticky paste will hold it until I can use the rope." The alien delegates exchanged puzzled glances. Why was the human announcing her strategy where her prey could overhear? It seemed like a critical tactical error. Commander Blackwood began to smile as she understood what Maya was really doing. "She is not making a mistake," she said quietly to the other Earth team members. "She is setting up multiple layers of deception." Maya continued her apparent planning session, speaking just loudly enough for any nearby listeners to hear. "Of course, if the serpent is smart enough to avoid the obvious trap, it might try to circle around from the west. I should probably set up a backup plan over there, too." She moved to the western side of the clearing and began constructing what looked like a secondary trap. This one was more elaborate, with multiple triggers and a more sophisticated capture mechanism. Maya spent considerable time and effort on the construction, frequently stepping back to check angles and test components. "There," she said with obvious satisfaction when the second trap was complete. "Now I have covered both likely approach routes. The mirror serpent will have to choose between two bad options." The mirror serpent had indeed been watching Maya's preparations from a concealed position about 50 meters away. The creature was roughly the size of a large python, but its most unsettling feature was its constantly shifting appearance. Its skin rippled and changed, sometimes showing Maya's own face and clothing, sometimes displaying perfect copies of the surrounding jungle vegetation. The serpent had observed Maya's success with the previous two prey animals and had developed what it considered a foolproof strategy. It would use its mimicry abilities to appear as Maya herself, then approach the captured creatures as if it were their captor. When the real Maya came to check on her prizes, the serpent would be perfectly positioned for a venomous strike. Maya finished her trap construction and began walking toward the area where she had secured the phase cat and sonic screamer. She moved with the same confident stride she had shown throughout the trial, giving no indication that she suspected any danger. The mirror serpent began its approach, taking on Maya's exact appearance as it slithered through the underbrush. Its mimicry was perfect, down to the details of her clothing and the way she carried herself. Even the most advanced sensors would have difficulty distinguishing between the original and the copy. "This is fascinating," the crystalline Zephyrian delegate said, his internal lights pulsing with excitement. "The mirror serpent has achieved perfect mimicry. How will the human distinguish between her own reflection and the predator?" Jake Morrison studied the monitoring screens that showed both Mayas moving through the jungle. "She will not need to tell them apart," he said confidently. "Maya never planned to win this through direct confrontation." The false Maya reached the captured creatures first and began examining the bonds that held them. Its movements were perfect copies of Maya's earlier behavior, and it even made the same small adjustments to the ropes that the real Maya might have made. The deception was flawless. The real Maya appeared at the edge of the clearing moments later and stopped when she saw her own duplicate crouched beside the captured animals. For several seconds, both figures remained motionless, studying each other across the small space. "Clever," Maya said finally, her voice calm and conversational. "You watched me work and learned to copy my appearance perfectly. But you made one critical mistake." The false Maya straightened up, its form rippling slightly as the serpent prepared to strike. "What mistake?" it asked in Maya's own voice. Maya smiled and held up her hands, showing that they were empty. "You assumed that everything I did was part of my real plan. but humans are natural storytellers. We can create false information as easily as we can gather true information. The mirror serpent hissed in confusion, its perfect disguise wavering slightly. It had been so focused on copying Maya's appearance and behavior that it had not considered the possibility that her actions might have been deliberately misleading. "The traps I built were never meant to catch you," Maya continued, still maintaining her relaxed posture. "They were meant to make you think you understood my methods. While you were watching me construct obvious snares and talking about approach, routes, I was actually preparing something completely different." Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device that she had constructed from materials gathered much earlier in the trial. It looked like a simple whistle made from a hollow reed, but when she blew into it, the sound it produced was perfectly tuned to match the sonic screamer's natural frequency. The captured sonic screamer immediately responded to the familiar sound, letting out an involuntary shriek of recognition. The blast of sonic energy was directed precisely where Maya had positioned herself when she built her fake traps, striking the mirror serpent with devastating force. The serpent writhed in pain and confusion as the sonic attack disrupted its mimicry abilities. Its form flickered rapidly between different appearances before settling back into its natural snake-like shape. The creature was disoriented and vulnerable, exactly as Maya had planned. Maya moved quickly while the serpent was still recovering from the sonic blast. She used her rope to secure the creature before it could regain its composure or attempt. Another transformation. Within minutes, the third and final prey animal was captured and restrained. The alien delegate sat in stunned silence as Maya gathered all three captured creatures and began moving them toward the extraction point. She had successfully hunted down 3 supernatural predators using nothing but basic tools and human intelligence. She used the second creature as a weapon against the third, Ambassador Keth said in amazement. And she planned the entire sequence, from the beginning, including the false information she provided. Dr. Parker nodded with obvious pride. Maya just demonstrated the most dangerous human hunting technique of all. We do not just adapt to our environment and prey. We manipulate them to create the conditions we need for success. Maya reached the extraction point with all 3 captured creatures and looked up at the monitoring cameras. "Trial complete," she said simply. "Earth's apex predator reporting mission accomplished." The jungle environment faded away as the holographic systems powered down, leaving Maya standing in the center of the council chamber with 3 securely bound creatures at her feet. The alien delegates stared at her in complete silence, their earlier amusement replaced by something approaching awe and concern. Maya calmly removed the improvised gear she had crafted during the trial and straightened her uniform. Her hair was slightly damp with sweat, and there were small scratches on her hands from working with jungle materials, but otherwise she appeared completely unaffected by the ordeal she had just completed. Ambassador Keth was the first to find. His voice. "Captain Rodriguez, that was an impressive demonstration. However, the proving consists of multiple trials. You have completed only the individual hunting challenge." Maya nodded respectfully. "I understand, Ambassador. What is the next trial?" The Thurvac technician consulted his control systems, his rocky features showing what might have been surprise. "The second trial tests adaptation under extreme environmental pressure. Candidates must survive in a hostile environment while being hunted by predators that learn and adapt to their defensive strategies." Dr. Parker shifted uncomfortably in his observation seat. The first trial had tested Maya's hunting abilities, but this one would put her in the role of prey. It was designed to see how well a species could survive when everything in the environment was actively trying to kill them. The crystalline Zephyrian delegate's internal lights flickered in complex patterns as he spoke. "This trial has been the downfall of many species. The environment is completely hostile, with no safe locations or reliable resources. The AI predators are programmed to learn from every defensive action and adapt their attacks accordingly." Maya listened to the explanation with the same calm attention she had shown before. "How long is the survival period?" 8 hours, the Thervac technician replied. The trial ends when the candidate either survives the full duration or is eliminated by the predators. You will be given basic survival gear but no weapons or tools beyond what you can create from environmental materials. Commander Blackwood leaned forward in her seat. She had trained with Maya in hostile environment scenarios, but this trial sounded more extreme than anything they had practiced. The combination of environmental dangers and adaptive predators would create an almost impossible challenge. What type of environment will I be facing? Maya asked. The technician activated the holographic systems again, and the chamber began transforming around Maya. This time, instead of a lush jungle, the space became a frozen Arctic wasteland. Bitter wind howled across fields of ice and snow, and the temperature dropped dramatically. Maya's breath became visible in the suddenly frigid air. Arctic survival scenario with adaptive predators, the technician announced. The environment temperature is minus 30 degrees. There are frequent blizzards that reduce visibility to near zero. The terrain includes unstable ice formations, hidden crevasses, and areas of thin ice over deep water. Maya accepted the basic survival gear they provided: insulated clothing suitable for Arctic conditions, a small knife, a fire-starting kit, and an emergency shelter that could protect against wind but would not last long in extreme cold. She pulled on the warm clothing and tested the knife's edge with professional efficiency. The predators in this environment are called frost stalkers, the technician continued. They are invisible in snow conditions, can survive indefinitely in sub-zero temperatures, and hunt by detecting body heat. Most importantly, they learn from every encounter. Each time you successfully avoid or escape from an attack, they will adapt their hunting methods to counter your defensive strategies. The alien delegates settled into their observation positions as Maya prepared to enter the hostile environment. The monitoring screens showed the vast frozen landscape that stretched in all directions around her starting position. There was no visible shelter, no obvious sources of fuel for fire, and no apparent escape routes. Maya stepped into the Arctic simulation and immediately began assessing her situation. The cold was intense, even through the insulated clothing. She could feel the wind trying to steal heat from her body, and she knew that exposure would become deadly within hours if she could not find or create adequate shelter. She needs to find shelter immediately, the Volani delegate observed, her skin shifting to colors that indicated concern. In those temperatures, even with protective clothing, hypothermia will set in quickly. Maya began moving across the frozen landscape, but her progress seemed slow and random to the watching aliens. She would walk in one direction for several minutes, then suddenly change course or stop to examine something on the ground. Her movements appeared inefficient and wasteful of precious energy. Jake Morrison watched Maya's progress on the monitoring screens and recognized her strategy. She is not wandering randomly, he explained to the alien delegates. She is reading the environment for information about wind patterns, ice stability, and potential resources. The first frost stalker appeared on the thermal imaging displays, moving silently across the ice toward Maya's position. The creature was completely invisible to normal sight, appearing only as a cold shadow against the already frozen landscape. It approached from downwind, using the howling Arctic wind to mask any sound of its movement. Maya continued her seemingly aimless wandering until she was about 50 meters from a formation of broken ice blocks. Then, she suddenly dropped to the ground and began digging rapidly in the snow with her hands. The alien delegates watched in confusion as she created what looked like a shallow pit in the frozen ground. "What is she doing?" Ambassador Keth asked. "That pit will provide no protection from the cold or the predators. It is too shallow and too exposed." The frost stalker crept closer, now only 20 meters from Maya's position. Its hunting instincts told it that the human was vulnerable while distracted with digging. The creature prepared to attack, confident that its prey had no awareness of the approaching danger. Maya kept digging until she had created a pit about 3 feet deep and wide, enough for her to lie down in. Then she used her knife to cut blocks of packed snow and ice, which she arranged around the edge of the pit. The construction looked crude and inadequate to protect against either the cold or any attacking predator. When the frost stalker was only 10 meters away, Maya suddenly grabbed her emergency shelter and dove into the pit she had created. She pulled the shelter over herself just as the predator reached the spot where she had been working. The creature found nothing but an empty hole covered by what appeared to be a flimsy piece of fabric. The frost stalker circled the pit, confused by the disappearance of its prey's heat signature. The emergency shelter was designed to block thermal radiation, making Maya effectively invisible to the creature's heat-sensing abilities. But the alien delegates knew this protection was temporary. The shelter was not meant for extended use. In extreme cold, she has gained a temporary advantage, the crystalline Zephyrian delegate noted. But the frost stalker will adapt to this defensive strategy, and she cannot remain in that shelter indefinitely without succumbing to hypothermia. Maya remained hidden for about 10 minutes while the frustrated frost stalker searched the area. During this time, she was not simply waiting. She used her knife to cut additional ice blocks from inside the pit, deepening her shelter and creating more construction material. She also arranged her body position to maintain maximum warmth while conserving energy. When the frost stalker finally moved away to search other areas, Maya emerged from her shelter with a pile of carefully shaped ice blocks. The alien delegates watched as she began building what looked like a small igloo using the blocks she had cut during her hiding period. She used the predator's search time to gather construction materials, Dr. Parker said with admiration. While it was looking, for her, she was preparing for the next phase of survival. Maya worked quickly but efficiently, using techniques for igloo construction that allowed the ice blocks to support each other in a stable dome shape. Within an hour, she had created a shelter that would provide genuine protection against the Arctic conditions. More importantly, the igloo's design would mask her heat signature and make it much more difficult for the frost stalkers to locate her. But Maya was not finished with her preparations. She had noticed something about the frost stalker's behavior that the alien delegates had missed, and she was already planning her strategy for the long night ahead. Maya crouched inside her completed igloo, carefully arranging small pieces of ice and snow around the interior walls. The structure provided excellent protection from the howling wind and helped retain her body heat, but she was far from safe. 3 more frost stalkers had joined the first one, and they were systematically searching the area for any sign of their hidden prey. The alien delegates watched the thermal imaging displays with growing tension. The 4 predators moved in a coordinated pattern, covering the entire area around Maya's shelter. Their hunting behavior had already begun to adapt, showing more patience and systematic searching than they had displayed during the initial encounter. The frost stalkers are learning, the Thervac technician observed, his rocky features showing concern. They have determined that their prey is capable of hiding effectively. Now they are employing persistence hunting methods rather than direct attacks. Maya peered through a small observation hole she had carefully constructed in the igloo wall. She could not see the frost stalkers directly, but she could read their movements by watching the patterns they left in the blowing snow. Each creature had a slightly different gait and weight distribution, creating unique disturbances in the ground snow that Maya had learned to recognize. Commander Blackwood studied the monitoring screens intently. She is tracking all 4 predators, simultaneously by their snow displacement patterns, but she cannot stay hidden forever. The temperature inside that igloo is still well below freezing. Maya had been observing the frost stalkers for over 2 hours now, and she had noticed something important about their behavior. The creatures were incredibly efficient hunters, but they had one significant limitation. They were cold-adapted, predators that depended on their prey-generating heat signatures. When there was no heat to track, they became confused and eventually returned to dormant states to conserve energy. More importantly, Maya had realized that the Frost Stalkers were not actually intelligent in the way humans understood intelligence. They were adaptive, but their learning was based on programmed responses to specific stimuli. They could modify their hunting techniques, but they could not truly innovate or think creatively about unexpected situations. Maya began implementing a strategy that would have been impossible for any other species in the Galactic Council. She started deliberately generating false heat signatures to confuse and misdirect the Frost Stalkers. Using her fire-starting kit, Maya lit small pieces of fabric from her spare clothing and placed them at strategic locations around the interior of her igloo. The burning material created brief heat flares that would register on the predator's thermal senses, but the heat was contained within the ice structure and dissipated quickly. "What is she doing?" the Villani delegate asked, her skin showing patterns of confusion. "Those small fires will not provide enough heat for survival, and they will reveal her location to the predators." Dr. Parker began to understand Maya's plan as he watched her actions on the monitoring displays. She is not trying to stay warm with those fires. She is creating thermal signatures that will appear and disappear randomly. The Frost Stalkers will detect the heat, but when they investigate, they will find nothing. Maya continued this process for the next hour, creating brief thermal signals in different parts of her shelter. Each time a Frost Stalker approached to investigate a heat signature, Maya would be in a different location within the igloo, having moved silently while the creature was focused on the false signal. The Frost Stalkers became increasingly agitated, as they repeatedly detected prey signatures that vanished before they could mount an attack. Their adaptive programming began to conflict with their basic hunting instincts, creating behavioral confusion that Maya was carefully observing and cataloging. "The predators are experiencing something like frustration," Jake Morrison noted as he watched their increasingly erratic movements on the thermal displays. "Their learning algorithms are receiving contradictory information that they cannot process effectively." Maya waited until all 4 Frost Stalkers were clustered near her igloo, investigating the latest round of false thermal signatures. Then she implemented the next phase of her plan. She used her knife to cut a new opening in the back wall of her shelter, creating an exit that would not be visible to the confused predators, moving with extreme care to avoid creating any detectable heat signatures. Maya crawled out of her igloo and began traveling across the frozen landscape using a technique called thermal masking. She pressed her body against the ice and moved slowly, allowing the Arctic environment to absorb her body heat and make her effectively invisible to the Frost Stalker's senses. The alien delegates watched in amazement as Maya became completely undetectable on their thermal imaging systems. She appeared to have vanished entirely from the Arctic environment, leaving no trace of her passage across the frozen ground. How is she suppressing her thermal signature so completely? Ambassador, Keth asked in disbelief. All living creatures generate heat. It should be impossible to become completely invisible to thermal detection. Lisa Chang smiled as she watched Maya's invisible progress across the ice. Humans have incredible control over their body temperature and blood flow. Maya is using meditation techniques to lower her metabolic rate and redirect her body heat internally. Combined with the environmental masking, she has become thermally invisible. Maya traveled for over a mile across the frozen landscape while maintaining her thermal camouflage. The technique was exhausting and could not be sustained indefinitely, but it allowed her to reach a location where she could observe the Frost Stalkers without being detected. From her new vantage point, Maya studied the predators' behavior as they continued searching for their vanished prey. She noticed that when they could not locate any thermal signatures for extended periods, they began to shut down their active hunting protocols and enter a dormant state to conserve energy. Maya realized she had discovered a critical weakness in the adaptive predators. They were programmed to learn from encounters with prey, but they had no protocols for dealing with prey that could completely disappear from their sensory systems. The contradiction between detecting thermal signatures and finding no prey was causing system conflicts in their adaptive programming. For the next 3 hours, Maya used this knowledge to systematically confuse and disable each frost stalker. She would approach a dormant predator using thermal masking, create a brief heat signature to activate its hunting protocols, then disappear again before it could locate her. Each cycle of this process caused more severe conflicts in the creatures. Adaptive programming. The alien delegates watched in fascination as the supposedly unstoppable predators began exhibiting increasingly dysfunctional behavior. They would activate, search frantically for non-existent thermal signatures, then shut down in confusion. With each cycle, their response times became slower and their search patterns became more erratic. "She is not just surviving the predators," the crystalline Zephyrian delegate observed with growing amazement. "She is systematically destroying their ability to function as hunters." By the 6th hour of the trial, all 4 frost stalkers had been reduced to confused, barely functional entities that could no longer mount effective hunting behaviors. Maya had not destroyed them through physical combat or clever traps. Instead, she had used their own adaptive programming against them, creating logical paradoxes that their artificial intelligence could not resolve. Maya spent the final 2 hours of the trial in relative comfort, having built a more elaborate shelter and established a reliable heat source using materials she gathered while the disabled predators wandered in confused circles. When the 8-hour time limit expired, she was not just alive, but actively thriving in the hostile environment. The holographic Arctic environment faded away, leaving Maya standing calmly in the center of the council chamber. She was slightly tired from the extended ordeal, but showed no signs of the hypothermia or exhaustion that should have resulted from 8 hours in sub-zero conditions. Ambassador Keth stared at Maya with something approaching disbelief. "Captain Rodriguez, you have completed the survival trial in a manner that defies every prediction our systems made about the outcome. The Frost Stalkers were designed to adapt to any defensive strategy, yet you rendered them completely ineffective." Maya nodded respectfully. "The predators were indeed adaptive, Ambassador, but they were still artificial constructs following programmed behaviors. Humans specialize in finding the logical contradictions in any system and exploiting them creatively." Dr. Parker stood up in the observation area, his face showing obvious pride. What Maya demonstrated was not just survival skills or environmental adaptation. She showed the galaxy something far more dangerous: the human ability to analyze, understand, and systematically dismantle any opposing intelligence. The alien delegates exchanged uneasy glances as they began to understand the true implications of what they had witnessed. Earth's representative had not just survived impossible odds. She had turned the trial's own systems against themselves with surgical precision. Maya crouched inside her completed igloo, carefully arranging small pieces of ice and snow around the interior walls. The structure provided excellent protection from the howling wind and helped retain her body heat, but she was far from safe. 3 more frost stalkers had joined the first one, and they were systematically searching the area for any sign of their hidden prey. The alien delegates watched the thermal imaging displays with growing tension. The 4 predators moved in a coordinated pattern, covering the entire area around Maya's shelter. Their hunting behavior had already begun to adapt, showing more patience and systematic searching than they had displayed during the initial encounter. "The Frost Stalkers are learning," the Thervac technician observed, his rocky features showing concern. "They have determined that their prey is capable of hiding effectively. Now they are employing persistence hunting methods rather than direct attacks." Maya peered through a small observation hole she had carefully constructed in the igloo wall. She could not see the frost stalkers directly, but she could read their movements by watching the patterns they left in the blowing snow. Each creature had a slightly different gait and weight distribution, creating unique disturbances in the ground snow that Maya had learned to recognize. Commander Blackwood studied the monitoring screens intently. "She is tracking all 4 predators, simultaneously by their snow displacement patterns, but she cannot stay hidden forever. The temperature inside that igloo is still well below freezing. Maya had been observing the frost stalkers for over 2 hours now, and she had noticed something important about their behavior. The creatures were incredibly efficient hunters, but they had one significant limitation. They were cold-adapted, predators that depended on their prey-generating heat signatures. When there was no heat to track, they became confused and eventually returned to dormant states to conserve energy. More importantly, Maya had realized that the frost stalkers were not actually intelligent in the way humans understood intelligence. They were adaptive, but their learning was based on programmed responses to specific stimuli. They could modify their hunting techniques, but they could not truly innovate or think creatively about unexpected situations. Maya began implementing a strategy that would have been impossible for any other species in the Galactic Council. She started deliberately generating false heat signatures to confuse and misdirect the frost stalkers. Using her fire-starting kit, Maya lit small pieces of fabric from her spare clothing and placed them at strategic locations around the interior of her igloo. The burning material created brief heat flares that would register on the predator's thermal senses, but the heat was contained within the ice structure and dissipated quickly. "What is she doing?" the Villani delegate asked, her skin showing patterns of confusion. "Those small fires will not provide enough heat for survival, and they will reveal her location to the predators." Dr. Parker began to understand Maya's plan as he watched her actions on the monitoring displays. She is not trying to stay warm with those fires. She is creating thermal signatures that will appear and disappear randomly. The frost stalkers will detect the heat, but when they investigate, they will find nothing. Maya continued this process for the next hour, creating brief thermal signals in different parts of her shelter. Each time a frost stalker approached to investigate a heat signature, Maya would be in a different location within the igloo, having moved silently while the creature was focused on the false signal. The frost stalkers became increasingly agitated, as they repeatedly detected prey signatures that vanished before they could mount an attack. Their adaptive programming began to conflict with their basic hunting instincts, creating behavioral confusion that Maya was carefully observing and cataloging. "The predators are experiencing something like frustration," Jake Morrison noted as he watched their increasingly erratic movements on the thermal displays. "Their learning algorithms are receiving contradictory information that they cannot process effectively." Maya waited until all 4 frost stalkers were clustered near her igloo, investigating the latest round of false thermal signatures. Then she implemented the next phase of her plan. She used her knife to cut a new opening in the back wall of her shelter, creating an exit that would not be visible to the confused predators. Moving with extreme care to avoid creating any detectable heat signatures, Maya crawled out of her igloo and began traveling across the frozen landscape using a technique called thermal masking. She pressed her body against the ice and moved slowly, allowing the Arctic environment to absorb her body heat and make her effectively invisible to the frost stalker's senses. The alien delegates watched in amazement as Maya became completely undetectable on their thermal imaging systems. She appeared to have vanished entirely from the Arctic environment, leaving no trace of her passage across the frozen ground. How is she suppressing her thermal signature so completely? Ambassador, Keth asked in disbelief. All living creatures generate heat. It should be impossible to become completely invisible to thermal detection. Lisa Chang smiled as she watched Maya's invisible progress across the ice. Humans have incredible control over their body temperature and blood flow. Maya is using meditation techniques to lower her metabolic rate and redirect her body heat internally. Combined with the environmental masking, she has become thermally invisible. Maya traveled for over a mile across the frozen landscape while maintaining her thermal camouflage. The technique was exhausting and could not be sustained indefinitely, but it allowed her to reach a location where she could observe the frost stalkers without being detected. From her new vantage point, Maya studied the predators' behavior as they continued searching for their vanished prey. She noticed that when they could not locate any thermal signatures for extended periods, they began to shut down their active hunting protocols and enter a dormant state to conserve energy. Maya realized she had discovered a critical weakness in the adaptive predators. They were programmed to learn from encounters with prey, but they had no protocols for dealing with prey that could completely disappear from their sensory systems. The contradiction between detecting thermal signatures and finding no prey was causing system conflicts in their adaptive programming. For the next 3 hours, Maya used this knowledge to systematically confuse and disable each frost stalker. She would approach a dormant predator using thermal masking, create a brief heat signature to activate its hunting protocols, then disappear again before it could locate her. Each cycle of this process caused more severe conflicts in the creatures. Adaptive programming. The alien delegates watched in fascination as the supposedly unstoppable predators began exhibiting increasingly dysfunctional behavior. They would activate, search frantically for non-existent thermal signatures, then shut down in confusion. With each cycle, their response times became slower and their search patterns became more erratic. She is not just surviving the predators, the crystalline Zephyrian delegate observed with growing amazement. She is systematically destroying their ability to function as hunters. By the 6th hour of the trial, all 4 frost stalkers had been reduced to confused, barely functional entities that could no longer mount effective hunting behaviors. Maya had not destroyed them through physical combat or clever traps. Instead, she had used their own adaptive programming against them, creating logical paradoxes that their artificial intelligence could not resolve. Maya spent the final 2 hours of the trial in relative comfort, having built a more elaborate shelter and established a reliable heat source using materials she gathered while the disabled predators wandered in confused circles. When the 8-hour time limit expired, she was not just alive, but actively thriving in the hostile environment. The holographic Arctic environment faded away, leaving Maya standing calmly in the center of the council chamber. She was slightly tired from the extended ordeal, but showed no signs of the hypothermia or exhaustion that should have resulted from 8 hours in sub-zero conditions. Ambassador Keth stared at Maya with something approaching disbelief. Captain Rodriguez, you have completed the survival trial in a manner that defies every prediction our systems made about the outcome. The Frost Stalkers were designed to adapt to any defensive strategy, yet you rendered them completely ineffective. Maya nodded respectfully. The Predators were indeed adaptive, Ambassador, but they were still artificial constructs following programmed behaviors. Humans specialize in finding the logical contradictions in any system and exploiting them creatively. Dr. Parker stood up in the observation area, his face showing obvious pride. What Maya demonstrated was not just survival skills or environmental adaptation. She showed the galaxy something far more dangerous: the human ability to analyze, understand, and systematically dismantle any opposing intelligence. The alien delegates exchanged uneasy glances as they began to understand the true implications of what they had witnessed. Earth's representative had not just survived impossible odds. She had turned the trial's own systems against themselves with surgical precision.